Hello everyone and welcome to this week of First and 10. I of course am joined by my Jerry Rice to my Joe Montana, Matt Etche.
You're Joe Montana?
Of course I am. I'm the gunslinger. I'm leading this show here, in case you haven't seen the past 3 episodes there, Matthew.
Okay.
But yeah, welcome to this show. We're not going to try to argue with each other here. We're not going to try to be like 2 referees in the NFL who can't coincide. We're trying to coincide. I think the show is a touchdown. But yeah, welcome to the show. We kind of just early alluded to this quickly, but refs, eh? How about them? What a week to be an official in the National Football League. Whether you're giving personal fouls to Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, or throwing hats causing receivers to trip, or of course, not knowing whether the ball was intercepted or not in Seattle. I'm just going to let you start before I maybe lose it. What are your thoughts on the reffing from last week, which clearly wasn't great?
Holy cow. What a Monday nighter. Twitter blew up. It was just pure entertainment. Some of those tweets are just, it was hilarious to watch. And the biggest thing is, no one is taking the side of the refs or the NFL here. No one. Usually, you'll see, like, in a lot, even before now, people have been like, well, the refs, they're doing their best job, blah, blah, blah. No. Everyone is like, this needs to stop now. This is ridiculous. Like, that was the wrong call. No one is even if you're a Seattle fan, I mean, you'll still say, yes, I'm glad we got the call, but you gotta say that was a terrible call. And it's ridiculous, Jason. I don't know what they're gonna do.
Well, hopefully the NFL has hopefully, and we've heard reports before we went and did the show today that the NFL has finally had the dam broke and they have signed the refs back, which hopefully they can be in there by Sunday, because after last week it was worse. It's honestly, the reffing has gotten to the point where you basically, the NFL is like a homeowner. You know what I'm saying? They're a homeowner, and they went out of their home for the past 3 weeks, and they let someone that's never owned a home basically run the NFL. And now the NFL is about to come back home, and it's burnt to the ground because they have no idea what they're doing. Specifically, when we talk about this Packers-Seahawks game, I think with this call has oversighted the entire game. The 4 seconds has taken over the entire football game, and it really overshadows the Seahawks' defense performance, and it really overshadows Russell Wilson's effort there to get that ball to the end zone, because let's be real, that was a crazy way to keep the play going there. You have to give Russell Wilson props for his performance on that last-minute drive, but the reffing, it was so bad. I mean, they had no idea. Like, the 2 guys can't coincide together. The one guy's like, that's not a touchdown. That's a touchdown. I think that's a touchdown. Yeah. So I'm just out there watching it like, well, they're not going to call the pass interference, because no one calls the pass interference in a Hail Mary. I don't think no,
that's fine. Yeah.
But then they go to the replay, which they have to because it's a scoring play, and the ref's like, yeah, that's a touchdown. Now, granted, if you and I were in that situation, we may call that because it's in Seattle, and we don't want to get thrown, and they don't want to throw Starbucks or old grunge CDs at us, or throw us off the Needle Point Tower or whatever it is. But, I mean, I feel so bad for the Packers, who, they rallied in that second half, and I think they did enough to beat the Seahawks, but the poor fish, they just stole one. And the Seahawks even have to admit, man, we should really be a 1-2 football team, not a 2-1 football team. But hopefully the refs will be back next week. And I think the interesting thing is the NFL, I saw a report on Deadspin that maybe that crew that was reffing was fired from the Lingerie Football League. So the Packers had their panties in a wad because of the lingerie football officials, which that right there shows the level of where you're getting your officials. Bad. But on, I guess, some brighter news from week 3 of the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
They are for real.
3-0.
3-0, leading that division. Because the San Francisco 49ers, lost their minds and forgot who they were playing last week and got caught. got caught in a Viking stampede, basically. So what did you think of how well the Cardinals played? Because they were great on not only on both sides of the ball, as Kevin Kolb was, able to hit his main man, Larry Fitzgerald, and the defense was really causing Michael Vick even more problems than the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, this Cardinals defense is incredible. They stops all the time. It's crazy. Kolb has been playing beyond everyone's expectations. You said last week you were finally starting to believe in Kolb, and you never thought you would ever say that.
No.
And then, of course, Fitzgerald. It was funny. Yeah, last week, I'm pretty sure we picked this game, or we talked about it anyway, and you said, they did go to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and I was like, wow, their whole team's dismantled, blah, blah, blah. Well, it worked out. They are now 3-0, leading this crazy division that is suddenly, for the last 5 years, this division has been the crap hole. I'm pretty sure a few years ago, the division leader who got to go to the playoffs was 8-8. I'm pretty sure, and that's crazy. Now in that division, you have Arizona, you have San Francisco, you have Seattle, and you have the Rams. 4 legitimate teams who, if I'm playing against next week, I am afraid of. And congrats to the Cardinals. I applaud you.
Like I said last week, I've bought into Arizona. I don't think there's any way you cannot. Me being a Bills fan, knowing in a couple weeks we have to make a West Coast road trip and take on those Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. And I was not worried when the preseason was on the way to play Arizona. I knew San Francisco would be a tough test, but Arizona was like, we'll get the job done. But not now. That defense is starting to look a little bit like the 85 Bears, which that worries me in its own right.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kolb is playing like Jesus, basically, out there. Kevin Kolb is Jesus if you live in Arizona. So, they also don't have that much of a competition next week. They have the Dolphins, who, in a way, should have won last week against the Jets, but, that's...
Now, one question for you. What happens when Skelton comes back?
I think Skelton sits his ass on the bench because Kevin Kolb's been playing too good football.
He's getting the shit done, even though Skelton won it at the beginning of the season.
Well, Skelton did win the job, don't get me wrong, and I did believe that I thought the best winning quarterback for that team was John Skelton, but I think it's a situation you have with the 98 Vikings where Brad Johnson was their starter but got hurt and Randall Cunningham came in and played so well and took him to the NFC Championship game that they couldn't put Brad Johnson back in there. That's the situation I see right here in Arizona.
They got the momentum with Kolb, you keep them in, for sure.
You can't mess with that vibe. You got to keep that going in Arizona. But speaking of a team that doesn't have a good vibe, New Orleans Saints. 0-3. We went with them thinking it'd be the third time it'd be a charm, and it looked like it would be up until Jamal Charles had, the Saints, wanting to march back into their locker room with a 91-yard run. And then I believe there's also a safety in there, basically leading the Chiefs to come back, and then they won it in overtime. What is going on with the Saints, and are we now off the bandwagon of the New Orleans Saints?
Ah, God.
You still seem like you want to be on it.
I want to be so bad. This team, they aren't that much different, but I get without the head coach, it's crazy. But maybe without the bounty, I don't know. No, seriously, this defense is awful. They need to learn how to finish a game. Yeah, Saints were up, and somehow KC gets back into it by running the ball. How that doesn't happen? You have to when you're up like that, your defense you just crowd the box, don't let them run, and they run the ball and they come back and they win. And New Orleans Saints had no answer for it. It's incredible to me. Yeah, I was saying it. I don't know. I think this week's matchup that we're going to talk about later is a little closer than what a lot of other people think. But I gotta say, yeah, I'm pretty much off the Saints bandwagon. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year.
I don't think you're off the bandwagon. I think you're still on it, but I do agree with your second point there. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I think you're secretly, yay, Breeze.
I love Breeze, but...
You may love him, but I don't think he's... I think next year's going to be the year they bounce back. I think we said it last week. We thought about it, but Sean Payton missing in this team is really, they basically just taken the heart and soul actually away from the New Orleans Saints because his gutsiness and his ability to trust players and motivate players is gone. They don't have him, and they don't even have the real interim coach up until like week 8.
I know.
So I mean, this whole situation really hurt the New Orleans Saints more so than we actually all thought it could be.
Yeah.
But moving on to next week, I mean, it was such a wild week in the NFL that we normally would go over the games we like, but honestly, we'd be here until the sun comes up for tomorrow because there were so many good games in the NFL. If you have the NFL Network, they are replaying some of the best games of the week. I caught the end of the Titan-Lion game, which that was crazy in its own right.
So many crazy games.
So many crazy games that we can't talk to. So we'll just jump into next week, starting with the Thursday Nighter. Now, normally we give a nice preview of the Thursday Nighter, but this week, it's the Baltimore Ravens playing the Cleveland Browns in the Art Modell Bowl. Normally we try to even see sides of the both ways, but I think we both agree Baltimore should just run over Cleveland. Cleveland they're too young for this young, very experienced Baltimore defense and that high-powered Raven offense. You agree?
I agree.
Okay, he agrees. So that's really the Thursday nighter. I think everyone is taking Baltimore. However, I mean, it could be interesting if we still have replacement refs throwing flags all over the field, like trash garbage men. But then, the Sunday nighter, that is, I think, another interesting game here that we're going to talk about. Actually, let's hold the phone on that, because before we get to the Sunday nighter, as you kind of alluded to, the big matchup for me in the afternoon is going to be the Green Bay Packers coming off the tragedy that Shakespeare himself couldn't have written against the Seahawks, taking on those New Orleans Saints. Now, last year, this was the game that opened the season, and what a game that was. That was a very explosive, entertaining game you want if you have a guy that's not sure he likes football, but you sit him down, you show him that game, he's a football fan for the rest of his life. Yeah. This year, it's going to be kind of that game, but not that game, as both teams are struggling. And I think that's kind of makes this game a little bit more interesting, because the Saints need a win may have to give a right arm to get this win. The Packers going to be angry, motivated after that tragic thing to happen to those cheeseheads. I'll let you start. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think both teams are struggling. Green Bay last week against the Seahawks, even without the ending, their pass protection did not look that good. Otherwise, I mean, I think definitely as a team, they're better than the Saints at this point. They should be 2-1. They're 1-2. Saints 0-3. The reason I think this is so interesting is I really want to see how Green Bay bounces back from something like this. How emotionally draining that is to play a whole 60 minutes of football and have a win taken away from you and be given a loss in those circumstances can be really demoralizing for a team and for your core. And this game against the Saints is going to be a real telltale for whether Green Bay Packers are for real. Now, if Green Bay Packers lose this game, go down, and they're 1-3, their chances of making the playoffs are pretty low. And I mean, the Saints, they go down 0-4. That's ridiculous. So I think both these teams are going to be playing with a lot to gain and a lot to lose. It's going to be a great game, a lot closer than a lot of people think. And the deciding factor, though, it is in Green Bay, so I got to go with Green Bay.
I gotta go with Green Bay just because they're gonna be mad. And you don't want to have a mad football team with that offense against a struggling defense like the New Orleans Saints. I mean, your whole point there is true. They had a win basically locked up, and because of poor officiating, they had it taken away. Now, granted, if I'm going to defend the NFL on this, the Packers cornerback should have tried to knock it down like you're supposed to be.
I don't know, though. My point with that, people say knock it down. Look at the Lions game.
But the player was a little far back in the end zone, but he did knock it down in right place, right time. If if the guy in the Packers game tries to knock it down, there's too much traffic there for anyone to get that football, and he's trying to intercept it, which is what you never are taught to do. But continuing, the Packers are going to be angry, motivated. I think we're going to see the best game we've seen out of Aaron Rodgers this year. I don't think anyone expected the 49ers to be that for real in week 1, and no one saw the Seahawks defense play that well last Monday on Monday Night Football. So I'm going to think we're going to see the best Packers for Aaron Rodgers. I think Cedric Benson runs the ball really well, and we see, you know, the old Cincinnati Bengals style running back that he was there. The Saints, their defense needs to show up. I mean, they need to they need to play like a team that we know they can play as. We know this offense is high-powered, and they really did prove it for the first half against the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. Drew Brees has weapons out there, Lance Moore, Jimmy Graham. You know, Darren Sproles can run the ball against this Packer defense in his own right. And one thing about the Chiefs getting the victory, they did a good job stopping Sproles. He only ran for like 91 yards, which is very impressive by the Chiefs defense. But the Packers, I'm going to take them. It's at Lambeau. They're angry. And the Saints go 0-4, and I think it just really shows just how much they've really missed Sean Payton. Now, moving to the Sunday Nighter, which is interesting because last week, this gentleman here was like Miss Cleo and kind of picked how the Sunday Nighter was going to finish. He may have been like, you know, Marty McFly and had that sport book from Back to the Future and how it all ended with it coming down to a field goal. So I'll let him start. How do you see the Giants and Eagles game laying out? And the Giants are your team, so how do you see this going?
Yeah, Giants will. First of all, I mean, I'm sorry, Giants. I picked against you last Thursday, and you were just kind of like, screw you, Matt. We're going to prove you wrong. So I was glad about that. Awesome, great win. This game, it's in Philly, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so it's in Philadelphia, which makes it tough. Philadelphia's always a tough place to play. But until Philly, and I mean, Giants showed it last week, they take advantage of your mistakes. Until Philly can stop making those mistakes, stop turning the ball over, they're not going to win much more. And yeah, I think that's going to be a big deciding factor. These two teams, I think, on paper, very similar. It would be a very close game. It's going to come down to whether Philly can keep possession and not turn the ball over. But I think Giants pull it out in Philadelphia.
I'm going to agree with you. I think the G-Men, I think they're just too much of a team right now. I mean, you know, people doubted them going into Carolina, and at the end of that, we all look stupid for doubting the New York Giants against the very young Carolina Panther team who did not show up whatsoever. And then their own right in Carolina after that seemed to be crumbling, and seemed some tension there between Cam Newton and Steve Smith. But on to this game, the Eagles at quarterback, Mike Vick, I love you, got the man right here. I love him, but Jesus Christ, can this man not throw an interception? He has 3 touchdowns this year in 3 games and 6 picks. That is bad. That is very bad. You do not win football games with a stat line like that. Not only that, it's not like he played some of the world's greatest defenses. I mean, you know, the Browns week 1 picking him off 4 times is disgraceful in his own right. And now he's taking a Giants team, which looks like they're getting some guys back in key positions on defense. You know, Prince Nakamura, or whatever, how you pronounce his name, he'll be back. And he's a scary cornerback in his own right. So they got to worry about that. And, you know, Webster and company.
And Brown put on a show last week.
Exactly. We doubted the running back situation. Yeah. We were proven wrong. The backup delivered in the situation there.
Never doubt the Giants to have depth.
I think the whole...
That was stupid of me.
The whole point of the New York Giants is if you doubt them, they'll prove you wrong. Yeah. They've done it in 2 Super Bowls, mind you. 2. So there's that whole thing. I like the Giants. I think Eli has now taken that motivation from the Panther victory. He's going to take it to the Eagles. The Eagles, they're missing some key guys like Macklin, and their offense doesn't seem to be clicking. And to me, they proved last week they were just lucky to be 2-0. So I like the Giants. It's in Philly, but I like the Giants a lot in this football game. Now the game, before we leave you, that we both agree is the most must-watch game is a very early start game. It's a big AFC East matchup between the New England Patriots and my beloved Buffalo Bills. Now, I have a lot of worries in this game because the Pats, they could get angry like the Packers and light it up. Or, I mean, their defense could show up and tackle everyone. Bill Belichick could tackle us like he tried to tackle a referee last week. It's going to be a lot here for how well we can handle maybe not having a key running back in the situation, because C.J. Spiller hurt last week against the Cleveland Browns. Now, the good news for me and all the Bills fans out there is it's not a serious injury. He did hurt himself. It wasn't a broken collarbone or anything, but he could even be back next week. He hasn't ruled himself out. And we could have Freddie back, which is huge. If we could actually have both those guys back and both of them carry the load, New England's in trouble. And the other confidence booster I got is when Spiller was gone, Fitzpatrick threw for 3 touchdowns and 0, folks, interceptions. That's huge for this football team. And I think Fitzpatrick and Stevie Johnson have developed a nice chemistry, which we need. But the Pats, it's the Pats. They've always had a good record against us. Really, up until last year, we hadn't beat them in ever. You could bet your house on New England playing Buffalo in those situations here. I'm going to let a guy that's watched a lot of Buffalo Bill games more so than me this season. What are you thinking about this game? And do you think Buffalo can continue an upset trend at home against the Pats?
One thing I got to tell you, I don't know about this. What's going on with this Patriots offense? Bill Belichick, for some reason, seems so committed to the run this year. I don't get it. When you have Tom Brady behind center and you have all of these receivers as well as these 2 tight ends who, I mean, yeah, they can totally run block, but they're also there. They're mostly there and they're paid for their passing game and being able to catch touchdown passes. Why are you running the ball? I think that's a big reason why they lost last week against Baltimore. And this is an offense that's experimenting and trying to find their identity, and I don't think it's the running game. If you wanted to run the ball, get some running backs that aren't just mediocre. They're good. Woodhead and Ridley are great, but they're just mediocre running backs. They're not one that can carry the Patriots offense. So that's what they need to do if they're going to beat the Bills, is they need to pass the ball a lot more, even in 3rd and 1 situations. That's what the Patriots have always done, and they have won by it. One thing the Bills have got to look out for is their defense has gotten a lot better. You could tell that against Baltimore, who has a pretty damn good offense. So, yeah, Fitzpatrick, if he doesn't throw any interceptions, that's amazing. I bet you he's going to throw at least 1 against this defense. Because, yeah, they're a lot better than they have been in years past. But the Bills are scary, especially if they have those 2 running backs back. They're going to make it close. And the Bills defense, they're one of the best in the league right now. They can be dominant. It's going to be a lot closer. I'm sorry, though. I got to go with the Patriots. They're going to win by a touchdown.
That's no problem. I can see these points for the Patriots. I think the Patriots feel they also got hosed last week, and my whole point of what the Packers are going to maybe do to New Orleans is what I think they could have happen to Buffalo. However, I'm a Bills fan. I can't bet against my Buffalo Bills. And I will also say, last year these teams played in Buffalo. Tom Brady threw 4 interceptions, coming off a season where he only threw 4 interceptions the entire year. So our defense has also improved since that point in time. So I like our defense a lot more. I think we can cause a lot of trouble, and we get to the pass rush. The O-line for the Pats themselves looks like it's fallen down. I've seen Brady get knocked around and hit a little bit more. Yeah. Baltimore was able to really get to Tom Brady more so than they had in previous seasons. I like Buffalo, even if we get 1 of the running backs back. I'm not asking for 2. If the Lord up there gives me Freddie, I'm fine with Freddie. If we get CJ, I'm fine with CJ. Even our 3rd string, I think, did a decent job there against. Now it's Cleveland, but he did a nice little help there and really helped this offense. It's really all in Fitzpatrick. I mean, he's the leader on offense.
Fitzpatrick plays best when he has limited passing situation.
I totally agree with you, and especially in a league that's now more so a pass-first type league. That's where I'm worried. I'm going to take Buffalo. Because it's in Buffalo, and I'm a Bills fan. I have learned, like you last week, do not bet against your team because they will prove you wrong. Because there's just that bad vibe when you bet against your team. So never do that. So also, hopefully, speaking of betting, hopefully you're not betting on the NFL at this point in time because due to that whole Monday night fiasco, $300 million was exchanged on that 4-second play.
That's ridiculous.
So the bank in Vegas made $150 million.
And imagine if you bet on the Seahawks.
If you bet on the Seahawks, you probably you probably were flying as high as a Seahawk, or you probably have bought the city of Seattle with all that fun.
Yeah, I'd send like $5,000 to that ref.
I would send $5,000 to Russell Wilson and $1 bajillion to the referee who said that was a touchdown. And But yeah, let's hope. The only thing I will say before we leave about these replacement refs in a positive light, them being so bad makes these games so much more interesting. They're like, a lot of these games are closer because of the poor officiating.
Yeah.
And as a fan, I definitely enjoy that. As a prudent and a longtime follower and just not enjoying certain of the calls, I take what I get. But they're making these games hell of a lot funner to watch, which you have to say, you admit.
I completely admit. I was telling you before the show, and just entertainment value is amazing. Yesterday, I was just reading through all of NFL, their Twitter account, all of their quotes or their tweets. And they just would say things like, hey, look at this play, what did you think of it? And people would just comment like, well, the refs didn't mess up, and just stuff like that, like completely unrelated. And NFL is just getting bashed right now on social media, and it's very entertaining. I think it's hilarious.
It's very entertaining, and for us Canadians, it makes the NHL not look as dumb for the point in time.
Yeah.
So, but that's really a kind of an abbreviated version, because there wasn't too much that interested us in week 4 going into the NFL, but and we really could have been here forever talking about the 4-second play in Seattle, the Monday Night Massacre, if you will, or Monday Night Mayhem, whatever you want to call it. But that's it for this week's show. Definitely come by around next week. It'll be on the same time, same channel, so stay with us. We're out. Peace.